You wish a 12-round knockout. You wish a 12-round knockout. You wish a 12-round knockout. I'm going all 12 rounds and I'm never gonna drop it. It's a 12-round knockout. You wish a 12-round knockout. You wish a 12-round knockout. I'm going all 12 rounds and I'm never gonna drop it. I keep my eyes focused as time's ticking to the final moments. My opponents try to approach us, but they can't hold us. How you gonna stop it, son, when your plan's hopeless? We got a father shining on us with angelic soldiers. I keep my gloves on.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to the KJ52 podcast. This is episode 4 featuring the homie Justin Sarachik. In this episode, we discuss kind of a lesser-known project I did called Peace of Mind, which was a side project of rap rock persuasion. Anyway, if you dig it or if you dig this podcast, you can be a supporter at www.patreon.com/KJ52. That's patreon.com/KJ52. If you donate, you can get this song that I just posted up, along with all kinds of other unreleased stuff. Check it out. And once again, thank you for tuning in. Head on over to iTunes, rate, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff.
It's all good.
This stuff going. And
love
y'all.
Let's go ahead and jump into this. This is the KJ52 podcast, episode number 4. Today we are talking about, I don't know if I'd say it's a little-known album. To some people it's well-known. To others, they're like, you did what? But kind of jumping into this KJ podcast is sort of the width and the breadth of all the stuff I've done. And the reason why I got the homie Justin on here, who, for those that don't know, he's one of the editors and writers at Rapzilla.com. Great Christian hip-hop website. And I think a couple months back, he did just a really in-depth article about this side project I did. And I was looking at it, and I just couldn't believe it. But it was 13 years ago, almost probably 14 maybe when we started it. So right around this time, I did this project called Peace of Mind, and which is also the title of this podcast, which is the fakest group I ever did. Because the whole thing was basically intended as an experiment / a complete farce as far as the group goes. But anyway, I got you on here because
I'm here.
You're here because you had wait. Talk a little bit about yourself. And you have a rap rock band, is that correct?
Yeah. So, all right. Where do we want to start? So I am Justin.
Tell people a little bit about yourself, so you're not just a random person in their ears. How about that?
Okay. All right. Sure. So my name is Justin Sarachik, and I have, I guess, spent my whole life or grown up in the church. So I've seen Christian music evolve on all ends, from DC talk all the way till now. And I used to rock KJ52 back in the day. Well, I still rock KJ now, but now I could talk to him on the phone, which is something I couldn't do when I was 14 or 15. So that part of me is very excited right now. But
the 14-year-old side, not the grown-up side.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I was always very interested in Peace of Mind because I've always liked rap and rock music, and big fan of Linkin Park and P.O.D. and old school Pillar and all that stuff. And I've always been in bands since I'm about 12 or 13 years old. I started out as a drummer, and then the musicians I started playing with got way too sophisticated for anything that I could do on the drums. So I became a vocalist because I liked writing music and wasn't that great at the drums. So since then, about I guess 10-ish or 11 years ago, I've been sort of rapping, singing, yelling, jumping around on stage, doing cool stuff like that. So Peace of Mind was always a cool album because it was that hybrid of hip-hop and rock that I've always loved to do so much. So I guess that's why I was very interested in talking about this album with you on that interview that you spoke about.
Right. And
I
what do you?
I guess that kind of
people might know you for what? For being a writer for Rapzilla, though, right?
Yes, I started writing with Rapzilla almost about 2 years ago. I used to write for the Christian Post, which is a very large Christian website, and then I became the editor of breathecast.com, which was like a spin-off Christian entertainment version of Christian Post. So I've very much been involved with Christian music or the music scene for a very long time, interviewing tons of people. And I interviewed you back then, actually, as well. But now I've found myself at Rapzilla dealing exclusively with hip-hop, which I had to learn about because I was a rock guy for so many years. And really the only hip-hop I knew was like you, KJ, and John Rubin and Philharmonics and a lot of people that aren't even really making rap music anymore. But you're still here. So
yes,
awesome.
I am the sweatpants of the music industry. I will never go out of style. I will never be in style. I just upgrade to joggers. That's all I am. That's what I do. But yeah, so there you go. Thanks for running that down. That is, it's funny to even hear, even to say the words rap rock. Sounds like we're talking about King Tutankhamun's reign of like 3,000 years ago. I think for those that may not have like come of age in the early 2000s, if you came of age a little later or even a little earlier, I think it's hard to really gauge how big rap rock was, say from, I don't know, say 99, maybe 98 to 2004, 2005. I mean, it really...
Yeah, it started tailing off, I would say, 04, 05.
Absolutely. Which is, of course, right when I put that record out. So good timing there, KJ. But anyway.
You had a solid year. Well, how do you think I feel?
Doing absolutely nothing and no touring. Yes, I did.
I started my band in 2008, and I was like, let's do a rap rock band now. But now, since that's so cringy sounding, we've upped our game. So we are progressive metal rock experimental that just so happens to throw some rap in there.
There you go.
So
you sound like
that's how we get away with it.
You sound like the youth pastor who's cornering me to have me do a verse on his song. That's what you sound like right now, describing what you do. Well,
hey, we're no Limp Bizkit, but I like to say we're a little better.
There you go.
Much better.
Yes, you are a hard biscuit. You're not a Limp Bizkit. You are a strong biscuit. You're a biscuit.
A heavy biscuit, very, very dense.
Exactly. Anyway, so I think I just give my little history on rap rock, which there is no history because it was never really a thing for me growing up outside of maybe like the era of, how Run DMC would always, combine rap and rock a lot together.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm switching this phone before this kid starts screaming in the background. And to be honest with you, I was never really into, Run DMC like that. And when they would combine like guitars with their raps, I always got a little irritated in some ways. And I was always into the Run DMC that just rapped over breakbeats. So my thing was always breakbeats. And I was never like a huge metal dude, though I did go through a, sad to say, hair metal phase in 8th grade. Where I went and saw Poison in concert, but we're not going to talk about that. So
wait, did you have a mullet though? Did you have a mullet?
Well,
you have a whole song about it. So did you have a mullet?
I had the attempt at the mullet. See, I was basically like, I didn't have the hair that was conducive to the mullet cut. You had to have like really fine, fishtail hair, and I had this sort of unkempt, curly locks that would pretty much do whatever it felt like. So when I would attempt to grow my hair out, actually, I think I tried to do a rat tail, 5th grade, and
I had a mullet
too. It just
too.
looked terrible.
I was born in '88. My mom had me wearing a mullet till I was about 3, and then she shaved it off, which I'm very grateful for.
Absolutely. So I was never really into rock metal. I mean, outside of the occasional thing, I think music, except for, the occasional hair metal band, but I think every kid in the 80s listened to that in some way or another. But so I was such a hip-hop purist that for me to combine rap and rock was like the ultimate sin. Like, I always looked at rap and rock as like, that was for guys who couldn't really rap, so they put rock around it to compensate for the fact that they were not great rappers. You know what I mean? Because I never heard like great lyricism. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to hit below the belt. But there was never just like, to me, there was never great lyricism with rap rock. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until somebody showed me some Rage Against the Machine that I was like, okay, I get that. Like Zach De La Roca, I think is how you say his name.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, he was an MC, but to me, he was an MC with guitars, But even then, I was
right.
Like,
he had a message.
Rap. Right, and I was like, he was saying something, and I think that's why I was always drawn to hip hop, because groups that I was into were very much lyricists. And that's why I was like, this is just. To me, it was style over substance, But most music is. So what am I talking about? Anyway. All I'm saying is, so I remember very clearly around 99, and this is kind of how this whole thing started. And for those that are listening to the podcast, I'm going to put this song up on the Patreon page. You can check it out. But around 99, 2000, when I got my first record deal, the label I was with, Essential, they said, hey, Carmen, there's a name you haven't heard in a while.
I like where this is going.
I like where this is going. It's going to get worse. They said, Carmen is doing a movie, and we're producing it, and they're like, we want you to have the title track to his movie, and his movie was called The Champion, of course.
Yes.
And they said, I was like, you kidding me? Like, I'm gonna get a song in a movie, I was like, this is amazing. They're like, there's just one catch, and I'm like, what? They're like, it's got to be a rap rock song, and that's when I was like, here we go. I can't just, that's what used to make me so mad, because I would be like, can't I just rap? Like, isn't just rapping enough? And that's the thing that used to make me so mad about the industry, is like, you could never just rap, especially when I came in. You always had to like dress it up or dress it down or water it down to make it palatable. You couldn't just rap over breakbeats. You had to rap with guitars, or you had to like make it poppy. So I was really resentful.
So you had a chance to have the Christian version of Eye of the Tiger, because
exactly what they told me.
Champion was a boxing movie, right?
Exactly. Carmen was a boxer, and he was still very much at like the height of his popularity, and and you just didn't hear about guys doing movies. This was not a thing. And
that movie was scandalous too, because he got the girl at the end.
Right. The funny thing is too is like we the only place that showed the movie was like 3.5 hours away, and I got in the car with my wife, and we drove to go see it just so I could see my part. And there was, I think, maybe 3 people in the entire theater. And then I come to find out, like, the most like risque scene is my song, and it was a shot of this girl's butt. Yeah, it was like a shot of this girl's butt dancing, like, for the first minute. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like. But anyway, the point was,
you're gonna get pulled from Christian bookstores.
Well, I had nothing to do with it. I'm like, I'm looking away. I'm with my wife. I'm feeling awkward. I'm like, this is not what I planned on. But anyway, they said, oh, you got to do this rap rock song, and I wrote it to a programmed drum beat that my man Golden Child did, and it was just a drum beat, and so I was trying to be, put some lyrics in it, and this is the song I'm going to put up as a download for all my patrons. This track called The Champion, and 12-Round Knockout. That was the name of the track. And but what had happened was, so Todd took that program beat that I recorded to, and he recut guitars over it with, I think, Pete Stewart, and he put live drums, and all of a sudden I was like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, for me, then the light bulb came on. And the funny thing was, up to that point, I had been struggling so much with radio. Radio wouldn't play me. I was too rap. My record wasn't selling. Within 3 months, I got dropped. And then I get dropped, And then radio picks that single up.
Of course.
All of a sudden, I start charting. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. All of a sudden, I couldn't get any shows. And then shows started coming in over that song. Christian radio stations were picking it up. And all of a sudden, there was just like this swing in momentum. And I thought, this is the worst. I'm like, this is the least favorite song I've ever done. And all of a sudden, it's being super embraced, right? And I had to add it to my set. But little by little, it started to kind of change my opinion. I was like, maybe there's a way I can be myself. I was like, all it is just adding more musical energy with the guitars, Then flash forward, I get dropped. I'm struggling.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, that was really it. So,
I was just
right
going to ask.
I got dropped.
You re-released that song on the remastered version of 7th Avenue, right?
Actually, I didn't. So what happened was, you jump ahead a couple years, and all of a sudden I'm doing really well. My records are selling. I'm getting booked. The same label that tried to drop me, or that did drop me, wanted to re-sign me. And they went through all this, rigmarole to try to re-sign me, and I wouldn't do it. Well, what they did was they put the same record out again. And they put that
I have
song
it.
on
That's
there.
the one I have. That's the one. Yeah. That's the version of it I have.
Well, the funny thing was, is then all of a sudden people discovered that album, because the first time around, the record only did 20,000. But then when they re-released it, it did like another 60,000 records. So, anyways, that's just label industry politics stuff. But then I sort of realized, I was like, wait a minute. So if I kind of do this token rap rock song, all of a sudden I'm pulling in this sort of new audience, those that don't really like rap but like rock. All of a sudden I was picking up new fans, and I'm like, this industry is so small, it's so tiny, it's so hard to make it, that I was like, man, I got to do whatever it takes to survive. And then it became sort of my MO from there on out to always kind of do like the token rap rock song on each album, you know what I mean? But then the other thing I noticed was I just was not, at the time, really connecting with the other Christian rappers. There was always this kind of weird distance, at least I perceived it as, between me and them for whatever reason. I noticed but I noticed these rock guys were just so much easier to get along with, because that's who I was touring with, And I noticed there was just not the judgmentalism, all the hoops you had to jump through for respect. It was just like these, I hate to say it, white rocker bands were just like, dude, you're awesome. We like you. You want to go on tour? I'm like, yeah.
I was going to ask you, because in Turn It Up, you say in Turn It Up, rappers treat me like a disease. That was one of the things
I'm sure
that I wanted to ask you about.
Well, I'm sure perception is reality. I'm sure it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And, us rappers were all sensitive little baby girls. So, or maybe it was completely on spot on. But yeah, to a lot of degrees, I did not feel embraced. Guys would write songs about me, dissing me. I would get people talking smack on message boards about me, and I never dealt with that from any of the rock bands. And that's when I realized I just had a better audience in that sense, Mm-hmm. And I realized if I stayed on this path of just rap for rap's sake in the early 2000s, I was going to struggle and probably just never turn the corner. And then what started, again, like I said, so what started happening was these rock bands started reaching out to have me do guest features, which those rock bands were those were really good looks. Like case in point, Pillar, on their second album, asked me to do a verse.
Stay Up. Yep.
Which actually was supposed to be T-Bone. T-Bone was supposed to be on that song.
Oh, because he was on the label, right? Was it Flicker? Mm-hmm. Flicker Records?
Yeah, so Flicker was like, we want our guy on the song, but T-Bone just was like, I don't know if he was flaking out or he wasn't answering or just, who knows. I was friends with Rob from doing shows, again, going back to me connecting with the rock bands better.
Yeah.
And Rob's like, I'd rather have you on it. Can you just, he said, can you just demo something and we're not going to tell the label? And then once we get it done, we'll show it to him. And that's exactly what happened. I went and I stayed with him. I did the verse. I helped him write another part on a different song, you know. And when they showed the label was like, oh, yeah, we like that. And then the label actually went to me and said, hey, we'll sign. This was when I was dropped. They said, hey, we'll sign you if you'll do a rap rock project. They're like, we won't sign you as a rapper, though.
That's great.
So that's when, again, I was like, back to, you know, like, again, I'm back to square one. Like, I have to do these silly hoops that I got to jump through in the industry. But, you know, I was actually even willing to do it. I was willing to do a rap rock project. In fact, even when I got dropped by Essential, I went back to them and said, look, I know you had to drop me because of the parent label. I was like, would you sign me if I did a rap rock thing? And they still said no. But anyway, 3 years later,
you could have went the route of Manifest, who went from rap to straight rock, and then a little bit in between.
And you know what? When I knew Manifest, he was just a straight rapper kid.
Yeah, I know. His first couple records.
And I feel like he's another example of, it's like, I hate to say it, but I felt like a lot of times the white guys, we were not allowed to just be rappers.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of shoved into a lane to survive, you know? And I feel like, I can't speak for Manifest, but I feel like he was a guy that, you know, struggled a bit just as a straight up rapper from Canada. And the minute he put some guitars on it, all of a sudden he started getting success.
Yep.
You know, when I first met
those
TFK,
anthemic songs.
Yeah, and when I first met TFK, 1,000 Foot Crutch, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it was like 99, and DJ Dub goes, yo, my guys want to do a song with you. They think you're dope. And I took one look at him, I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. They had like bleach blonde hair, and I'm like, here's another freaking rock band wants me to do the guest rap. I was like, they probably suck, you know. And I remember hearing one of their songs. I'm like, yo, this dude can actually rap.
Yeah, on that first record, what was it, Set It Off? There was a straight rap rock record, and then they just kind of dropped it right after that one.
Right. But, I mean, again, a lot of people don't know, but Trevor started as a rapper. Like, he was just a straight-up rapper. There was no, you know, rock stuff. But, again, I don't know. I think because maybe the tone that Toby set, you know, white guys were just not allowed to just be straight-up rappers. It was like you had to be rapper plus this or rapper plus that, you know. Hence, sorry, this really long setup, but...
What are we talking about again?
Yeah, well, so I'm trying to explain why I would even remotely do this Peace of Mind record. So all of a sudden, you know, I get re-signed. About a year or two later, I get signed to Tooth and Nail, which again is a rock label. This again goes back to what I'm talking about. Tooth and Nail is a straight up rock label with a hip hop subdivision, and they brought me in to be a pop rapper. You know, they were like, we want somebody that sells records. But again, I was right back in this rock world where they were not hip hop. You know, there was not a hip hop world I was in, down to the label. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden I started getting all this success, and things were, you know, turning the corner, and collaborations was doing well, and then Pronounce 5-2 did even better. And then I was still getting the redhead stepchild treatment at shows. Like, I would be outselling these rock bands by like twice as many records, and I would get lower billing, I would get less pay, I would get less looks. And not that it's about that, but I was like, man, rap just keeps getting dissed.
Fair.
You know, like,
yeah.
I was like, just because somebody threw some dumb guitars over a drum beat, all of a sudden it's like they're considered better than me. So that's where Peace of Mind came from. It was literally my way of going, okay, fine, you want to do that? Then I'll do it. I'll show you I can do it too. You know, it was a bit of a chip on my shoulder, you know. And at the time, you know, Brandon was being like super generous with the projects. You know, he was like, you want to do a side project? Cool, no problem. And he greenlit the whole thing, you know. So anyway, I was super nervous about it though.
I wrote down a list of all the rap rock bands at the time that dropped something in 2003, like you, to see what sort of company you were in. So we got Pillar. Yep. Pillar dropped Fireproof. You had 1,000 Foot Clutch dropped their second record, which wasn't really rap rock. You had that band Justified.
Yep.
I know Disciple back in the day. Disciple back in the day was sort of rap rock. Then you had 38th Parallel.
Yep, I toured with them.
The Christian Linkin Park.
Yep.
Pax 217, one of my favorites.
Toured with them. First tour.
POD dropped their Payable on Death album.
Yep.
A band called East West.
I vaguely remember them.
And that's what I got on there. And then I took a note that you did that song with Pillar, Stay Up. But yeah, so that was that was your competition. Obviously, POD was the biggest one there.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I almost was signed to POD's label like almost 10 years prior, and to Rescue Records. So I was already very familiar with POD. You know, Sonny was in like one of my first videos in '97. You know, and I looked at POD as one of the bands that did it right. You know what I mean? Like I was like, Sonny's dope.
Super talented.
That music is legit. Yeah. They did it way before it was cool. They're enjoying massive success. And you're absolutely right. And I was never going into it like, oh, I'm going to beat them at their own game. That was never the idea.
Yeah.
What I was just trying to do is go, okay, this is what you want? Here you go. I'm not going to do a token song. Here's a whole album. And then once I started doing it, I realized I was completely lost. You know what I mean? Because all I knew how to do was write raps. I didn't know how to really sing at that point. I didn't really know how to write melody. You know, I was like, I don't know how these guys do what they do. This is totally out of my wheelhouse. And I had Todd, who was my normal hip-hop producer, and I had Pete, who I had no relationship with. And all Todd was doing was going, here's a hip-hop beat, just write to it and record it, and then we'll build it around your song. And that's what became the whole album.
Wow.
Which is a really terrible way to do a record.
Well, to be fair to you, you just said that you were a rap guy having no idea how to rock. A lot of these rock bands that faltered out, they were trying to catch that new metal rap rock wave. None of these guys were rappers either, but they were just trying to jump on the bandwagon. So you are the extremely rare case of the total opposite.
Right. Right.
Of the rap guy like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to go make that rock album now. You are Christian music's Ice-T.
Well, see, that's the thing. I hated that Ice-T album. When Ice-T, I was a huge Ice-T fan, and when he put out Body Count, I thought it was terrible. I was like, this isn't even good rap rock. Like, this is just bad music. That's what I thought. You know,
they're still around.
I know, right? I was like, I can't be that. And that's why when I go back and listen to the album, to me, it feels a little disjointed. Like I can tell, like there's a song in there. There's just a straight beat still in the song. That's not even our song. It's a Gangstar beat. You can hear it in the song. We never took it out, which is completely illegal.
Which track was that? Do you remember?
Don't Ever Give Up.
Yeah, you know what? I was when I was listening to the album right before this phone call, I was taking little notes on a notepad. And for Don't Ever Give Up, I put, this just seems like a signature KJ song of that era, like a song that could have went on any of your albums. And maybe it's because it just straight up has the hip-hop beat over it. So it just feels like a song. It feels like a song that could have been on Pronounced 5-2 or on Behind the Music, one of those two.
Right. Well, this is before I used to make my own beats, so I would just take instrumentals that I liked, and I was a big Gangstar Guru fan, and I loved that song. I can't remember what the instrumental's from, and I was like, well, I'm just going to write it to this instrumental. Well, then, you know, again, the vibe was to record to what I recorded to, and then, you know, strip it out and then build around it. Todd just never took it out. It would be like as if you wrote a song to Thriller to the instrumental, and you just was like, you know what, we're just gonna leave Thriller in the song.
He was going back to his production days, making the Free at Last record when they used a ton of samples on that record.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And I'm still in awe that was never caught. You know.
They even say it on the record. There's a little skit.
It's just so funny, man. But anyway, but I think a couple songs in, I started realizing, you know, how far out of my wheelhouse I was, and that I didn't know how to write the choruses, you know, because I noticed a lot of the choruses for rap rock was like rap verses, sung choruses. And I'm like, I don't have the voice for this. I don't have, you know, the screaminess. And even when I go back and re-listen to how high my pitch is, you know, when I would rap back then, you know, I feel like some of my tone clashes a little bit with the guitars. Like, it's not like we weren't working on tones. We weren't working on vocals in that sense. We were just like, get it done, turn it in. And I remember very clearly that Brandon, when we turned it in, was like, kind of, I don't know if he was irritated, but I think he was kind of like, this is not very heavy rap rock record.
Yeah.
Because there's like 2 or 3 songs on there that are just like not really rap rock songs. You know? Like, and even though it's funny because that's the song I like the most. The song, I think it's called Baby Boy, Won't You Worry?
We Gonna Make It. We Gonna Make It.
That's my favorite song in there, and it's really not even a rap rock.
That's a great song.
Right.
It's not at all. Is that Todd on the chorus?
Yes. Yeah.
I knew
so
it.
I wrote
and doing the ad-libs.
Yes. So I would write everything, you know what I mean? Like, I would even write the singing parts, but I was like, I can't, you know. I was better at writing pop, you know, R&B type sing parts than rap rock stuff, you know. And part of it, too, I was like, man, I'm already on the fence with everybody when it comes to, like, my legitimacy. I was like, all this is going to do is make me worse. I was really self-conscious about it, you know.
It's funny you saying that part. I put a note to mention the Baby Boy part being awesome, being the highlight of that track.
Right. Well, I really like, I mean, that's a true story. That is essentially, you know, my relationship with my father and the stuff we went through. You know, that's really what the song was about. And it was about saying, you know, my dad, you know, and just that time of me growing up in Ybor City and the financial problems and all that stuff. And there would be times where my dad would be like, you know, we're going to make it. You know? So, like, I you know, I judge most of my old albums by, like, the lyrics of it, you know, like what the content is, and, you know, can I say that I was happy with what I wrote? And generally I was pretty happy with what I wrote on Peace of Mind because I felt like I used a lot of creativity and, you know, I was pretty happy about that. I just wasn't really happy with my execution of it, you know, in some aspects.
Well,
but
I mean, you're telling a story on most of the tracks. For the exception of Turn It Up, which is like that hype track that sort of tells the story of where you're at that time.
Right.
You know, everything has a story. I mean, you have Coming Soon, which is a story about the rapture, which is your most new metal rap rock sounding song. That was my note on that. You have Crucify, which is like a super gripping song about the crucifixion.
Can I tell you about that song? Crucify?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's your podcast. You tell me whatever you want.
Well, I didn't want. Okay, I wanted you to finish what you were going to say. Keep going. I'll tell you something about.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Go ahead.
Well, okay. So again, at the time, you know, I was still continuously dealing with the Eminem comparisons, and you know, just always a little irritated about that. But this was also right around the same time Lose Yourself came out.
Okay.
And Lose Yourself obviously was such a massive song. And one thing I noticed about M was that, you know, he would always have sort of like a token song with guitars in it, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember when Lose Yourself came out, I was like, this song is terrible.
Really?
Yeah, I was mad.
You still feel that way?
No, of course. It's probably his best song he ever wrote. But I'm saying at the time, I didn't like the way the drum arrangement was, because the drum arrangement just goes dum, 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 dum. And I thought it was the most irritating track. I thought the music of it was super irritating.
Okay.
And I remember being on the road with Grits at the time when Lose Yourself came out, and I remember getting in like this this argument with Coffee, and I said, like, dude, you hear this song? I'm like, M's fell off. Like, he's over, dude. And Coffee's like, that song is a classic. That song will be talked about for years. I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about.
He should have placed a bet.
I know, right? But Crucify was sort of like, it was the last song I wrote for the album, and it was sort of like that idea. Like, I was like, Eminem took something and really painted a picture lyrically with some guitars. I was like, what if I actually tried to paint a picture of the crucifixion with guitars? And that was the last song I wrote. Which, that one I was actually pretty proud of. Yeah. And
you have, just on that chorus, like those jabs. It sounds like, are there horns in there too with the guitar? Like the
again,
in the chorus.
That was like,
as you go crucify him, like that part.
I was struggling so much to finish the album because there's only 10 songs on there, you know, and every song basically we recorded, we put on there. I was like, I remember doing that last song and just being like, whatever you guys do, just do it. Like, I don't care. I'm so sick of this record. This thing was a bad idea. I'm in over my head. And that was the only one that we didn't work with Pete on.
Okay.
And it was a different guy. I want to say it was the guy who played guitar for, like, Casting Crowns or something like that. It was really out of the ordinary. But again, I don't think I was really ever in the studio with Todd except for once or twice. I actually recorded some of the songs in Golden Child's closet when I think he was still in high school. Like, his brother was running a studio out of his room, and I demoed some of the songs there, like in his closet. And I mean literally next to his clothes. Like, it was anyway.
That's some insight. That's some insight.
So the funny thing about
you were very hands off.
Exactly. Again, the funny thing about that record is just how unconventional it was. And by the time we kind of finished it, I was like, have I made a huge mistake here? You know, like, I'm just throwing more product into the marketplace. And I don't think there was ever really any ideas of them being like, well, you got to tour it, you know. But I thought, I just made a record. Like, I got to do these songs now. And I was still touring with, like, just a DJ, you know. I didn't have a band yet, so much less try to.
You never had a band.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's anything else before we go to the infamous photo shoot and talk about
that? I could just run through my notes on the other songs.
Go for it.
So I said, all right. So I Am was probably the heaviest one on the album.
I like that.
That was a pretty heavy song.
Yeah.
We talked about Turn It Up. We talked about Don't Ever Give Up. We're Gonna Make It. Coming Soon, I said, was the most rap rock sounding Rapture Story. Then you have your slow jam, After All, which I think this could have been on Behind the Music as well.
Yeah.
Had that vibe.
Yeah.
Scream, which, you know, How Was My Day? How Was My Day? And I can promise you that I probably tried to write a song just like that, in that vein, when I was like 16 years old after listening to this song.
That one was actually about my stepfather.
It was so angsty. It was angsty.
It was actually, because that's where I was struggling. I was struggling with tapping into the angst side, because as a rapper, it wasn't really something you did. So I was just like, what things make me emotional? And that was literally a song about, and I had never written about that or ever since, was just, the tumultuous kind of, incendiary relationship with my stepfather. But yes, I'm sorry, continue.
And who does the hook on that?
That's me.
That's you singing that?
Yeah.
So you did pretty well on that. I didn't even think it was you.
Well, that's the first time I kind of really was able to do it. These kids are screaming behind me. Do you hear that?
I know. They're trying to do their rap rock impression.
They are not happy. They are not happy being swung. Yeah. So I think that actually, if anything, probably peace of mind, like, helps me, learn how to use emotion better, and angst.
Mm-hmm.
In
then
hip-hop.
Then you have "Will You Go Out With Me," which is just a punk version of your "Revenge of the Nerd" song.
Yeah, I remember that's a song I'm pretty embarrassed of. I don't think that was a very good song. I think what I was trying to do there was like something Beastie Boys would have done, because they would like the Beastie Boys, at that point were into their Check Your Head, Hello Nasty phase.
Yeah.
And they would always have just some random punk song out of nowhere,
Right.
And I was like, well, maybe if Beasties can do it, I can do it. I'm like, I know nothing about punk. Again, it's just, it is what it is. But sorry, continue.
Did any of those songs work with your wife? Were you able to do any of these songs to your wife? Revenge of the Nerds, Would You Please Dance With Me?
I think at that point she'd probably checked out on the 3 million things I had going on. I think I stopped running things by her.
Then you have Where You're Gonna Go, which was the obligatory reggae track on a rap rock album.
Yeah, it was dumb idea. I think I'd listened to 1 311 song and thought, oh, I could do that too.
Have you ever tried anything with reggae again since then?
No, because you understand, man. I grew up in South Florida, so I grew up around real Jamaicans and grew up probably more than anything on a steady diet of reggae music and dancehall music. So for me, authentic roots reggae, dancehall, I understand the culture beyond just the music, and so at the end of it, I was like, what the heck was I thinking, right? Again, you're listening to somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing and is figuring out as it goes along, and then just running out of ideas, And but one thing Brandon did well was he always gave you artists. He gave you enough freedom to hang yourself. As the saying goes, give you enough rope to hang yourself. So he was not the type to sit there and be like, you got to do this. But I do remember him saying that he was disappointed it wasn't heavier. The record wasn't heavier.
Right.
But part of this was Brandon's fault, because Brandon was like, oh, we'll get models to be your band for your cover. That's what I remember him saying that. We're going to hire a bunch of male models that look amazing and make that your band.
That just seems like a strange idea anyway. It almost seems weirder than what you're about to tell everybody.
Right, which brings us to the photo shoot. So when it came finally time to do a photo shoot for this album, and when I say photo shoot, this wasn't like we went and stood in front of a green screen and took 3 pictures and walked out. This was an entire day's worth of a photo shoot. And we kind of were like, there's no real band to do a photo shoot with. You know what I mean? The guy who played drums lived in Ohio. I never met him one time. Todd, obviously, is my boy, but he looks nothing like a rock dude. He's like a pretty boy. He looks like a wide receiver in the NFL or something like that. And then Reed Shippen, who was who mixed the whole record, who was a really celebrated engineer at the time, or still is. He was a very high-end engineer. He was like, well, I can do, I'm down for the photo shoot. And we're like, that's only 3 people. And Reed didn't play a single instrument on the record. And Reed's a bald-headed dude from Jersey. He's a scary-looking, dude from Jersey, sort of. So we're like, we have 3 people, and none of us look the part. And so the only part we were hoping on was that Pete was going to show up, because Pete was a legit rock guy. Pete was in Grandma Train, went on to be in a band with Marcos from POD. Pete looked the part, and I remember the day of, he just was, flaked out. Which I don't even know if he flaked out. Maybe he wasn't, told properly or whatever. So, the one guy that legitimately should have been in the photo wasn't even there. So we called up my other engineer, who didn't do anything with the record, who just was my mix guy for all my other stuff. And we're like, what are you doing today? He's like, nothing. You want to be in a photo shoot?
All right.
So that was it. The whole thing was made no sense at all. And we legitimately went to locations in Nashville and shot shots and we did a studio shot. I mean, I'm sitting there with a New York Yankees jersey on for no particular reason. Did not watch baseball. And one thing I remember very clearly, I'll never forget this. summed up my relationship with Todd was that Todd went, like, right before we took the pictures, he was doing dips because he had a cut-off shirt, and he was doing dips to pump. And I go, what are you doing? Like, why are you working out? He goes, oh, man, you got to pump the guns. I'm like,
yeah, Todd looks the part. Todd definitely
I know,
looks the part.
and I'm like, he was the only guy.
He looks like the front man.
He was the only guy that actually was smart enough to think about what he was going to look like, right? And I just was like, well, this is a terrible idea. You know, I remember thinking, like, this is, if this work, I remember thinking very clearly, like, if this works, there's nothing real in the industry.
you might as well quit.
I was like, it's over. Like, you can just fake your way through anything. I'm like, I'm a rapper, not even recording the rock beats, not even writing rock songs with a fake band. And I'm not going to tour it. And I was like, if this works, this shows that people are so easily fooled. And sure enough, it did.
I'm holding the CD in my hand, and Todd is front and center in the picture anyway. And he looks like the front man. You look like you might be the DJ in the back.
Well, I had no idea what I was supposed to look like, because in my head I'm like, there's still sort of some artistic integrity, like, in my heart. I'm like, I'm not going to completely fake it and, like, show up in flannel and, like, a Scully. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm like, how in the world do I kind of thread this line between the two worlds? And I ended up not really looking like anything. You're right. I probably look like Limp Bizkit's DJ.
But why aren't you front and center is what I want to know. Like, it really is focused on Todd. I mean, and he looks good. He looks the part.
To be honest with you, I have no idea. I was so lost during that photo shoot. Like, this is such a ridiculousness. Between Todd's, like, ego stroke and two people that have nothing to do with the band, I'm like, this is such it made no sense to me, So, you're right. I'm not in the middle. But I think part of me didn't care. Like, I wasn't walking around going, I can't wait to be the front man for peace of mind. You know what I'm saying? I was like, here's another way for me to have a creative outlet. That's really the way I looked at it, And
you were purposely trying to get cut in half on the back cover of the CD.
I don't know. I guess so. But long story short, we end up, records turned in. It is what it is, and they're going full out with it. They're sending it off to the radio, and I did an actual. They used to do these things called sales conferences where you would present new music to the salespeople, and they would in turn sell it into the stores, or radio would be there, or whatever. So we did a whole band. Like, we did a whole fake band, an actual band, and played two of the songs. And I'll never forget, because that was right when Cross Movement signed with Tooth and Nail also. It was the only record they ever put out with Tooth and Nail. And so we had to both do our showcase the same night. And this was when, like, tracksuits, like velour tracksuits were really big, when dudes would wear the matching, full tracksuits. And so I was at GMA at that showcase, like, in a silver tracksuit, like velour, with Timberlands on, and, like, maybe a Scully hat. And I remember literally Ambassador looking me up and down, because we were both about, he's like, what are you about to do? Like, why in the world are you dressed like that and you're about to front this rock band? And I'm like,
did you know them previously?
Oh yeah, I'd known them since, I was still a youth pastor.
Yeah.
I met them before I even had a deal, so it was never like,
oh, okay.
It was never like weird. I think we knew each other well enough that he could kind of, like, look me up and down, like, really, bro? This is what you're about to do? And I was like, just leave me alone, man.
So are there any videos or pictures of this thing actually happening?
There is. There's one picture. I'll put it up on the podcast. There's one picture. And I never forget, because we hired some bass guy to play. He's a black guy with dreads. And they were like, he'll look cool if he plays with you. And I remember he showed up with a Ninja Turtle shirt on. And it was like, he actually still looked cool with a Ninja Turtle shirt on, his dreads, and he was playing the bass. Like, the band, the band, you
have to have confidence.
Right. I mean, our execution of the song was great. I just remember, like, the band was on point, and I was like, scared to death that I was going to forget my lyrics, and I think I did. I remember I kind of fumbled through a few of it lines, but
What were the 2 tracks you guys did?
I think I did I Am, and I think I did, I don't remember the other one. I do remember definitely doing I Am. I don't remember the other one. It might have been Scream. I honestly don't know. And now it's probably, actually I have no idea. I'm not even going to pretend like I remember. So it was kind of like in my head, I thought, okay, cool. Now I don't ever have to tour this. I don't ever have to promote it. I don't ever have to play it. You know, they'll send it off the radio. It'll just be one thing. I'll look back and go, oh, yeah, you did it. And it actually started doing well, you know, with no promotion, no real tie-in to me except for, you know, my own acknowledging of it. You know, the record was actually selling better than most rock bands that were coming out at the time.
Nice.
And it got radio spins, and, you know, it garnered enough, like, you know, attention that, you know, a couple years later or a year later, people were like, you know, when are you doing the follow-up? I never played one song ever. I never sold, I think I might have sold like 30 CDs at my table once, and that was it. You know? And we were actually, at one point, we were going to do a follow-up a couple years later, and it was going to be with Aaron Sprinkle.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And he actually, I remember, demoed like a track or something and sent it to me, and like we had a phone meeting about it. And that was, by that point, I want to say it was like 2007 or so. And by that point, I wasn't working with Todd anymore, and I think Brandon was like, felt like the record could have been better, and let's get a legit rock guy in there to do it. And I was actually really excited to work with Aaron for that project, like, because he had this really cool idea of like making it very Beastie Boys-ish.
Yeah.
But with heavy
He's
guitars.
worked with everyone.
Like, right, and I was like, dude, that's me all day. Like the break beats of a Beastie Boys combined with rock guitars, you know, I'm like, totally. Because Paul's Boutique is one of my favorite records of all time. That's the Beastie Boys record. And, but yeah, people would still be asking me, you know, a couple years. I felt like people were still asking me about it like 10 years later. And I finally had to just be like, guys, it's not going to happen. Like, just let it go. It's over. And
it says something on your Wikipedia page of Peace of Mind. I'll read it to you. Another Peace of Mind album has been rumored, though KJ announced on his podcast that he will only consider writing another if opportunity comes, noting that his solo work is better received.
Yeah. Sounds right.
So I don't know if you actually said it like that.
No, I definitely said that. I definitely said that because here's the way I gauged it. You know, Peace of Mind did about, I think, like 20,000, 30,000 records. But my solo stuff, as KJ was doing, up to 150,000 records. So in my head, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to do something else that kind of really ends up taking away from my solo stuff, you know? So.
But do you think it would have done better had you called it maybe like KJ52 Presents Peace of Mind or something like that? Maybe just people didn't identify with the name.
Well, that's the thing. I wouldn't have done that. I don't think I would have. Or maybe I had an idea like that, or maybe Brandon didn't want to do that. But I felt like there was a clear idea that we have to make it two separate things. Like it can't be. There wouldn't be any cross promotion, you know. Because you know, we did the record relatively cheaper. We didn't spend a ton of money on it, but yeah, I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know. I think in my head I started going, well, I can always just do the token rap rock song on my album, and that's enough, you know. And then sooner or later I was like, this is really, I don't need to keep doing these songs. Like, I got to stop doing these songs. You know? And that's what I did.
You usually did them with a feature, right?
Right.
You would like feature a rock guy like Trevor or rock was on a track.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, again, it goes. The market changed, and you didn't have. You know, eventually, what happened was what I've always wanted to happen was that you could just be a rapper. And then what started to happen is if you started to mix rap with anything else, then people actually started getting mad. They're like, stop doing that. You know? And then I always thought it was really ironic that, you know, years after I had stopped that, Reach came out with their rap rock record you remember that?
Yeah, well, Reach changed the whole game, I guess, with everything. But what was their rap record?
I think I just remember they took their songs and recut them with guitars. You know, and it was called, like, I think it was like 16 Letters or Rock Mixed or something like that. And I was like, dang.
Yeah, I think so.
And I remember thinking, man, even those guys got to play the game. You know, because there was a time where
I know that they've done stuff with Family Force 5 and different stuff like that too. I think KB and Tadashi did some heavier stuff with them too, a couple tracks. So they're still mixing
that was
around.
All on their record.
Not as much.
This was a Reach Records record, you know.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, dang, even they have to, like, play the game. And I thought, this industry is just so backwards. I was like, someday they'll get it. And, of course, it would be, like, way past my prime when they finally started getting it.
Yeah, they seem, everyone seems to get it now within the last, 3 years or so.
Exactly. So, anyway.
But it started with you, man.
No, it definitely didn't start with me. If anything, it started with Toby. You know, he's the guy that was
Toby's
the genre
the guy.
blender. He's ground zero for all things change. He's the guy that's, you know, we all stand on the shoulders of someone else. That's the reality, you know.
Yeah, that Momentum album was that perfect blending of the two.
Right.
Of the rap, the rock, a little bit of reggae, a little bit of pop, and it put everyone on notice, I guess, to get a little more creative.
Right. And this is going to sound like some old man Jenkins talk, but like I can remember a time where you were considered the worst sellout to even think about mixing guitars with rap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all my purist rap friends were just like, that sucks, that music's terrible, they can't rap. And for the most part, they were right. And then I actually started getting irritated because then, you know, I'd be at a show and some worship band or some rock band was like, yo, man, you want to come up and bust a freestyle on our 130 BPM rock song? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't want to do that. And I'm not your token thing to make you cool. Because you guys play too fast and your drummers... Too. Right. I'm like, you guys play too fast and your drummers you can't play rap beats. You know
that you know the band, the worship band King's Kaleidoscope, they're dropping a mixtape.
Of course.
Of course, it's going to have Andy Mineo is going to be on it. I think Propaganda and a bunch of guys are going to be on it. So now that's a thing, worship mixtapes.
Right. Well, the thing is, you know, it's funny how much the industry has changed, but you know, for me to survive back in the day, I had to tour with rock bands, and you never heard rap being played, you know, as the dominant thing. And now, that's all you hear. Like every youth ministry thing I go to, every youth conference, every person I deal with, it is the new rock. And rock bands are the struggling ones. Like they're where we were when I started. And they're having to conform to us now. And it's funny because I've made this joke, but I've felt like I was in a concentration camp for most of my career, having to survive, and now I've just been let out, and I'm like, what happened to the world, you know? You know? So I'm like a guy that's been incarcerated. I've been institutionalized for a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that rock is the dying breed now.
Right.
And that
this year was the first year that
hip-hop's destroying it.
Yeah, it was the first year that hip-hop's outsold that genre. But anyway, dude, thank you, man. Thank you for jumping on here. Your insight was great. Anything else before I wrap this up?
Yeah, well, something funny is, real quick, that my parents owned a Christian bookstore in the mid-2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. So the copy of Peace of Mind that I have actually has a legal notice license on it because it's a promotional
right.
CD.
Make sure you don't bootleg that on Napster.
Yeah, so a lot of the CDs I have from that era are just straight up, you know, promotional items from the Christian bookstore. So are they worth any money? Probably not, but it looks cool. It's a cool story.
Yeah, you're out there slanging them CDs in a world that doesn't want them anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm standing next to what I call my tower of CDs, and I have 3 towers of CDs just standing next to me. I don't even have a CD player in this room, but I got my CDs on display, and awesome, a couple cassettes awesome. Mixed in there as well.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I guess check out the article on Rapzilla where KJ talks about this too. The title is KJ52's Fake Rap Rock Band and How He Hit #1 in Australia for Soul Purpose.
Yes, oh boy, Soul Purpose. There's a whole nother podcast.
That's the next episode.
There you go.
If you don't mind, a plug for my band since I spoke about it.
Do it.
My band's called Process of Fusion. You look us up on Facebook or on Twitter, POF_band. I promise you it's not cheesy rap rock in the late 90s. It's much better. We're working on a full-length album. It should be out this winter. And that's it. Hit me up on Twitter if you want to talk hip-hop, talk about Rapzilla, talk about whatever. And KJ, you're the man. Thanks for letting me come on and share.
Back at you, bro. Appreciate you, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Later. Bye.